Boxing is a real farce at times. Watch this video. Hello, welcome to Me Edson. I hope you're all well. So, boxing as a sport, as a sport of pugilism, is a farce at times, and not the sport itself, not the training, not the fighting, not in the ring. It's everything that surrounds it. The mismatches, the rhetoric, the talking bollocks, the talking nonsense, all the times from fighters, boxers, from trainers, from promoters, from managers, from people on YouTube, from journalists. Sometimes it's an absolute farce. And a lot of times it just seems to get worse and worse. Now, we're looking forward to this weekend. Josh Taylor against Echo Esserman in Glasgow, and decent undercard as well. And I've got to say, for this one, is actually the talk hasn't been that bad, actually. And I thought, well, hey, I'm really looking forward to this. In terms of Esserman against Taylor, I mean, I'm not going to make a prediction video here, but I'm going to favour Esserman on this one as opposed to Taylor. I just think Taylor's had his day, but I could be completely wrong on that one, so I'm not going to delve into it on this video too much. But in terms of what's been going on recently, especially the last couple of weeks, we talked about the John Fisher, Dave Allen issue. We can always talk about Eddie Hearn, Frank Warren, any other promoter you can think of, and the managers coming on left, right, and centre. And I've talked about the boxing journalists and, too much of them getting themselves involved in stories as well. But here's another latest thing. I kind of touched on another video a while ago about social media or YouTuber boxing or professional fighters getting into that world. And I'm talking of the likes of the Misfits cards, and I'm talking of the likes of Darren Till from the MMA world, then taking on boxing and going into the Misfits. He had a couple of fights. And then this all starts like this. It all starts. And I blame him. I blame the system, but I also blame ex-boxers for getting involved in this as well. Because they're trying to hype things up, and they're trying to, it's almost like the YouTuber boxing world has taught all these boxers to talk a load of bollocks, talk a load of crap, and to inflate themselves, inflate their profile. And Darren Till, for me, seems to be doing that. The quality of his boxing is poor. For me, it's poor. I'm not saying he's not a tough guy. I'm not saying anything like that. But I just think in terms of standards, in terms of levels, we know where he's at. Now, if he's got any humility, and I think he does in terms of this regard, he knows where he's at as well. But now we know that he's calling out different people after his win. He's obviously got into an online verbal spat with Carl Froch. Now, I also said in a previous video that I blame Carl Froch for kind of responding to this. He shouldn't have responded to it. He should just ignore it. I'm not, you're a mid-40s ex-fighter, fantastic fighter. You shouldn't be involving yourself in all this kind of nonsense. And the problem is then you see a video where Darren Till then responds again, counters again. He's spitting in the car as he's driving or as he's a passenger. He's spitting, he's fuming. If I see you again, Carl Froch, I'm going to come to boxing events. I'm going to take you and take all your boxing mates on. I'm going to have you, and you don't stick a fucking chance and all this kind of stuff. It's, lots of this, right? So here's my point. The point is, and I've made this in the past before, with all the nonsense that goes on around boxing in terms of mismatches, in terms of talking crap from pro fighters, right? Then you throw in, people from the MMA world, for example, or from the YouTuber world coming into the boxing, like the Jake Paul, who think they're going to be world champion, who think they're going to take on boxers. It kind of really salts the water, it muddies the water, because all of a sudden you think, will you lot just shut up? Will you just go away and not even get involved in boxing? But they do, and they're allowed to come into boxing even more. Now, my particular pet hate of MMA fighters talking about boxing and say, well, they always talk it, and Darren Till's been doing it. He specifically said it when he's talking about Carl Froch and anybody else who's in boxing. He said, because I'll take you and I'll beat you, and you can't beat me. I'll take you to the ground and all this, I'll choke you out, all this sort of stuff, right? He's talking about how you would beat them MMA style, right? And I get it, because boxing is one-dimensional, just like, and every specialist fighting style is one-dimensional. Whereas mixed martial arts, MMA, is mixed. You're mixing up. You're doing lots of different things. So, the old adage from Bruce Lee was never box a boxer, right? That's the whole formation of Jeet Kune Do. That's the whole, the birth of MMA, Jeet Kune Do, is, you never box a boxer. You take them out with another style, with another fighting method. So I've no doubt that the likes of Darren Till could, do some serious damage in a street fight or in an MMA world, against a boxer. I have no doubt. Or unless the boxers have had MMA training and then all of a sudden they're a great matchup. So that's a different thing. But what he's doing, he's basically coming in and saying, right, boxers absolute rubbish. You're rubbish. And so I get this all the time. There's a whole load of nonsense, a whole load of things being said by MMA fighters, and especially about Darren Till now, so saying, he's almost like dismissing boxing. So my question to Darren Till was, well, if you're so dismissive of boxing, if you think it's a rubbish fighting style, if you just think it's a nonsense fight, so that MMA is so much better, then why don't you stick to MMA? Why don't you stick to where you were before? You come out the UFC. Well, why don't you go and do something with the PFL? Why don't you go and do something elsewhere? So why have you come into boxing? Why have you started all your training for the last couple of years in boxing? Why have you desperately tried to get onto Misfits? Why are you desperately trying to get fights and you just couldn't get fights all the time? Why are you entering this boxing world? If you think it's so bad, why are you involved in it? Because you're trying to earn money. You're trying to get fights and earn money. Now, on that point, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to come into a sport, then at least you got to respect the sport that you're at. So trying to, challenge or threaten ex-boxers, because you're having a bit of an online spat. Well, first of all, you don't need to do it. Second of all, you're talking about levels of boxing, and then so the only way you're gonna, you're gonna take them out is just by reverting back to MMA. Well, say, well, then why are you involved in the whole world of boxing? If you hate it so much, you have such a low disregard for it, why do you have a hate for it? Now, this is where I talk about boxers and fighters and things with a little bit of kind of, reservation, really, in that the more that you talk bollocks about your opponent, talk smack about, other promoters and boxing as a genre and the business and everything like that, the less people are going to want to engage with you. It's simple. It's simple maths here. It's simple, trade negotiations, really, let's say. It's business. The less that you're, pro whatever the system is, the less people are going to want to include you in it. So the more the likes of Darren Till and other people talk crap about other boxers, about promoters and everything, the more they kind of, make people think, well, what the hell are you here for? Why are you here? Why are we, as in the global we of the boxing world, let's say, Boxing Appreciation Society, why are we giving you the opportunity to fight in the boxing world? If you hate it so much, why the hell are you here? And so this is my point. This is my question for anybody coming into the boxing world, or anybody going into the karate world, or to the kung fu world, or the tiddlywinks world, or whatever it is. If you hate that so much, then why are you even in it? Why go anywhere near it? So for me, if you're going to go into something, you have a bit of respect for it. You have a respect for the style, you have a respect for the science of it, and you have a respect for what it is, and have more of a respect of all those people that you're talking about. Now, conversely, I would say the same thing for professional boxers or anybody in the boxing world. You're supposed to go to a boxing gym and learn discipline and learn all these different things that take that street away from you, and you become better people. Well, I see a lot of boxers, who've got kind of coerced or kind of, they're changed by this media world right now and this social media world now. Now that they're coming out and thinking, oh, well, if I start saying this and start talking smack, all of a sudden, that's going to make me better. It's going to do better for me. In fact, it doesn't. It backfires on you in the long term, especially if you can't back it up. Now, for Darren Till, especially, or any boxer, like the likes of Jake Paul and all this kind of stuff, so where they're calling out all these has-beens or all these, and when I say has-beens, I don't mean in a derogatory sense. I mean, fighters or ex-fighters who have retired, a long time retired, right? You shouldn't be even talking about those guys. You should leave those guys alone. They shouldn't be in your, as Carl Froch would say, you shouldn't even mention my name, right? Because you should just be fighting people at your level and your age group, let's say, or who are still active fighters. So if you want to fight somebody who's a boxer right now, fight somebody who's a boxer. Now, I know you've been trying to get on with Tommy Fury, but Tommy Fury is still a novice. He's an absolute novice. Now, you could say, I would put Darren Till as an absolute novice as well. And maybe that would be a good fight. And maybe you beat Tommy Fury. I really don't know. But they're both real novices. But if you put Darren Till in with somebody who's just even a little bit better than Tommy Fury, he'll get found out. He'll get found out within a round. Because the way he fights in terms of a boxing sense, listen, I wouldn't want to meet any of these guys on a dark street, let alone in a boxing ring or anything like that. But in terms of objectively looking at boxing, and I've been a student of boxing for 45 years, I absolutely love the sport, he's a terrible boxer. That's the thing. He's a terrible, terrible boxer. At the level which he was fighting, especially the last weekend in the Misfits and fighting another MMA fighter, yeah, fine. It was great. It was a great scrap. It was a brawl. It was fine. It was fun to watch. But in terms of quality, stick to your lane. And this is when I talk about the overall boxing as a farce in terms of letting this happen, letting these mismatches happen, letting these boxers start talking smack about each other, or fighters start talking smack about each other, or letting people who actually don't even like the sport get involved with it, let alone when we're seeing it kind of seep its way into the pro game. And how some boxers, really get carried away. Now, by contrast, other boxers, who have a lot of respect for their opponent, a lot of respect for the, promotion team, the management, and the sport, it's almost like you think, oh, they're not really selling the fight now, are they? Oh, they're a bit boring. They're not really selling the fight. When actually, you kind of want it both ways, do you? You want them to be complete arseholes, but at the same time, you want them to be respectful as well. Chris Billam-Smith gets labelled this a little bit as well. So, well, he's a gentleman of boxing. He's a bit boring. He needs to sell it a little bit more. You get other, even Dave Allen against Johnny Fisher, whilst they're both funny, especially Dave Allen, they're very respectful. And they could have said, well, they could have sold it a little bit more. And if it wasn't for the outside noise of all the, the Gareth A. Davis and the Fisher clan, butting heads that built up the fight, you could say that actually those two boxers themselves didn't really sell the fight. So what are we doing? We're just trying to sell the fight. We're trying to make a circus. Well, probably that's the business of boxing, right? But when it kind of overtakes the whole spirit of boxing and what it's supposed to be, the sport of boxing, the art of boxing, the science of boxing, either two men or two women get into the ring and they're, going to fight each other and see who's best, see whose style, see whose tactics works better, then you're kind of messing with that, in my opinion. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do here, just keep on watching the videos. Don't forget, you can go to the website, revelatealf.com/books for all the sporting books that I sell. And with that, well, I'll catch you again. Bye now.